again. Welcome to another session in our series on one-source tax provision functionality, and in particular, work papers. So in a prior session, we talked about using the one-source work paper tool to set data into the software. And in today's session, we're going to talk about using it to get data out of one-source tax provision. So let's just dive right in. As you know, the work papers tool is something that we can use and leverage to get data into and out of one source instead of using the export functionality, which exports the data via the spreadsheet. In this case, we're going to use that tool to be able to get data out of the software. So just as a quick overview of the functionality, it uses Excel. So all of the things that work with Excel, copy pasting, cell referencing, using drag and drop, that's available with this tool because it is an Excel add-in. So the beauty is that you can leverage your existing work papers instead of duplicating your efforts and creating something else or copy and pasting something into a tool to be able to get data into the software. And in this case, we are talking about getting data out. So your only option would have been to export a data set, either an entire data set or a unit, or export reports out of the software. So we are going to use this functionality to get the data out of the system. So let's just jump into Excel. So I'm using here a workbook that I used in the episode that we talked about setting data. So as you can see, I have this extra tab called Work Papers, and in order to get that, you will have to download the add-in that is available to you if you have access to Work Papers. You can get to that from OneSource Tax Provision. It will be onesourcetax.com. I'm sorry, there will be a Work Papers tab, and within the Work Papers tab, you will have the opportunity to download the add-in, Excel add-in, and load it right up. And once you do that, you will have access to the work paper tile. Now, in order to use the functionality, or I should say not just to use the functionality, but to be able to get data into the software or pull data out of the software, you will need to log in. And you will do so directly in Excel by simply putting in your username and password that you would typically use to get into the software at onesourcetax.com. And you just hit verify. And once that comes up, okay, then you register. The beauty of this is that you do not have to be in the software like we're accustomed to doing to get the data in. I can be, but I don't even have to have Excel open to be able to do that. And as a matter of fact, I am just going to log out right now. How's that? Okay, so what we're going to do is in the prior session, we pushed in some pre-tax book income as well as perms and temps. So in this little work paper here, I kind of want to show that what I pushed in, I expected to push in. So I want this check to be 0. So we're going to kind of go through that exercise. Now, I already have something that's hard-coded, and I say hard-coded because while this may look a little bit overwhelming, this is the format or the formula that is used to get the data out of the software. What this is telling me is that I am getting it out of my tax provision module. I am pulling out the pre-tax book income in local currency. My data set type of 1 is telling me that it's a provision data set. And right now I'm actually linked, not hard-coded, to the dataset ID, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm also linked to my unit. I'm trying to pull unit 100 in this case, and my adjustment is linked. So we have the ability to, if we go through the wizard, it hard codes everything. But once we are doing our functionality, building our work books and getting a little bit savvier about how to build them, we definitely want to build in flexibility so that the workbooks can be used in just a variety of instances. Once you hard code things, copying and pasting, you have to be very cognizant, because if I copy this down to this permanent difference area, it will now be saying I want to get something from a pre-tax book income when I really wanted to get something from a permanent area. So that's one of the benefits of starting to link to things like this, where we actually have, built the features in that we can pull dynamically. All right. So in order to get data, so since this one is kind of a combination of things, I am just going to go here and I am going to go through my functions wizard and I'm going to select get. I want something from the tax provision. And here are all of the things you can get out of the software. Payable entries, state payable entries, perms, your tax basis numbers, your trial balance information. And something that's a little bit different. So when we are setting data to the software, it's specific to gross or after tax timing difference, but it's literally, piece by piece, the individual data, setting most types of things en masse or summary numbers we cannot do. But we can pull summarized data out of the software. So one of the things we can pull is calculated amounts. So like if I go into unit calcs, I can get the total federal tax current or the taxable income number or what the financial taxable income number is. I can get a sum of my permanent differences. We can also get something that's called lead sheet amounts. So in essence, this is mass data. Just by doing one pull, you can get lots of data out of the software. So the deferred lead sheet amount would give you all of your timing differences that are sitting within the data set. Similarly for your payable, and your provision is going to give you your walk from your pre-tax book income all the way down to that number shown on your provision report, which represents the effective tax rate for the unit. And these you can pull data out of the system at the unit level or the subcon level, and you will see that in just a little bit. So let me change that because I wanted to get perms. Let me go back up and select my perm differences. I want to get the modification amount that I set previously. Okay. Just as soon as it pops up. And what I am going to do in this case is I'm going to do a little bit of linking. Now, as you can see, it already populated certain things for me because I already have mapping existing from when I set data. So it already populated the data set. It populated the unit, the adjustment, age 15, because I already have a set for age 15, and the adjustment type as well. So you can see I'm able to use what we call anchoring. It's the same thing as using cell references in Excel, where you lock a column or lock a row to prevent them from being moved. So in the case of the data set, every line item is going to use the data set ID. And if I click this little box here that looks like a typewriter, it will give me actually what that data set is, and it will give me the ID, which is unique to the data set and is needed in order to get the information out of the database. So I'm going to go back again and just select it. Okay. And then I have to tell the system what class I want to pull the information out on. So I have the ability to pull all classes perpetual, which means that as we keep adding classes to our catalog or to the database, it will automatically include that in the pull. If I select all in a point in time, then it's only what's available today. But right now, I just want to pull just the current year activity because I know that was the one that I used to set the data. And similarly, we can do perpetual or point in time for this one. And actually, I will just do perpetual on the subclasses because it's possible we maybe put data in a variety of different ways. Okay, and that's it. So now that we've done all of those, I'm going to click next. Now, one of the differences you will see is that unlike the set, which had a target range and a formula, this one automatically comes up with just one. So it puts the target range and the formula in one thing. So I'm just going to click here and point to that. And then we will talk about what happens if you want to see it separately. Now you'll notice the system it just automatically pulled as soon as I was finished building the formula. So it will do that. So if I was to copy this down, because I linked to P160, I should be able to get my P180 number now because I linked over there. And so you can see my check should be zeros have gone to zero, actually, because it has pulled the information out of the software. Now, while we kind of linked to certain things, we did not link to everything. So if I was to copy this down and try to pull to T267, I should get an error message. So let's just kind of go ahead and do that. It actually pulled zero. So not an error message, but it did go query the database, but it did not find a permanent difference with this code. So it could not bring back any data. All right, so I will simply go back in to my formula, and I'm going to change this now to, I'm going to link everything over here, which we kind of walked through in the set session. So I am going to go select that I wanted my temp diff, whoops, and I selected the wrong thing. So let me fix that. I'm going to select this one. All right. And then I am going to select, I want to pull the activity. Hit next. And once I've done that, see if my other items already populated. So now I just need to link my class. Oops. And my subclass. So just for the purpose of linking, I am going to do that here and just link to one. I believe perpetual is an asterisk, but we'll just kind of leave that be for now. Okay, and then I'm going to click next. So this time, what I'm actually going to do is, if I can just scroll over here, I am going to point on, click on the thing and that little box, and I'm just going to come over here and do that. So I am going to, actually, I think I just flipped that. I should have actually been here and then pointed my target range. So we will fix that in a second. Okay. As you can see, I did a little flip flop. So my number is actually here when I wanted my number to be on this one. So let's just kind of switch that around, and I'm going to make my amount be L, is moving on the fly. Okay, so there's my 2020, my 25. But now I did not get my cell formula over into the right. So, but I think you get the general drift. If you want to separate and have a date time stamp, simply put your cursor in the cell that you want the date time stamp to be in. And when you select the target, then your target will be the cell you want the number to come in. And that would split the formula and give you your date time stamp in cell P, with your actual amount being in cell L, let's say L21 in this case. As you notice with the other ones, it does not allow you to see the date time stamp. You see the number coming in, but if the date time stamp is something that you care about, you're going to have to bifurcate it. One last thing. I kind of went in and I went into my add-in settings and showed you this. And we looked at it for disable the coloring. I believe I did that when I was in my settings session. So just to reiterate, while we're not setting data, but if you want to build your workbooks and not have your things change to orange and blue, if you want to maintain the colors you have, you can simply disable the coloring of the get set target cells and you won't see the blue and the oranges. Additionally, something that I think is very important when you're building workbooks is to disable the automatic calculation of the work paper formulas. So if you recall, when we first built the formulas, it automatically populated as soon as we selected done. So if you don't want the software to do that as you're building a workbook, and it can become a bit of an issue if you're building a rather large workbook, because every time you insert a column or you insert a row, the system will re-trigger and regenerate and try to pull again. So while you are building your workbooks, you might want to just disable the automatic calculation. Notice that it is only as of the point in time that you're in Excel. So if you were to shut Excel down and go back into Excel again, that will be disabled once more. You will have to trigger that again if you want to do that. I personally, as a rule, because I often open very, very large workbooks that could take many minutes to open, have a general rule where I start in the morning and I just disable that automatically. I just open a blank workbook that doesn't have any formulas in it and just disable it. But if you do that, you will have to go, something we did not work through, is to retrieve your selected data. So as we talked about with sending data, if we are to select the icon at the very top, so either the two rotating arrows or the send, it's going to either retrieve all formulas that have, all cells that have retrieve formulas, or send all formulas that have send formulas on them. If you want to specify just a few to retrieve, then you will highlight those and select retrieve data. So once you have disabled the automatic pull, you will have to go to the retrieve data functionality again to get the data in, or simply go into the add-in settings and take the disable automatic calculations off, and the system will automatically start pulling again. So I hope you found this helpful. Do go in and just create a workbook and just start playing around, select a variety of different things and just see what you can get out of the software, but have fun with it. Hope you found this helpful and useful, and I look forward to seeing you in another session.